Hi, and thank you for joining me for another video. And friends, today I want to speak to you about the laws of Noah. And I really just want to throw something your way for you to think about so that you can be sure that you've made the right choice. And friends, I've heard the scenario being played out many times. Someone who's extensively familiar with the Bible comes to the realization that the Torah is true and that keeping the commandments within it is the ideal that one should aspire to. And because of this, he decides to convert to Judaism, only to have a rabbi tell him, why would you want to convert and take upon yourself so many mitzvot when all you have to do is keep the 7 laws and you will please God? And not just please him, God himself will give you a share in the world to come. So, in other words, here we have the rabbi taking it upon himself, taking the responsibility upon himself of guiding the new Torah believer off the path that he has already consciously accepted upon himself. And then even proceeds putting the individual on a different path that, if he would have come from Islam or Christianity, is less ethically demanding than his previous belief system. Now, remember what I just said, that the non-Jew who came to convert or who was confronted by the rabbi has already come to the belief that the Torah is true and that the mitzvot are true, and is still encouraged by the rabbi to do less. And it's very sad to say that this is the norm today, my friends. Now, let's stop and see if what the rabbi did is right according to halakha, or even according to common sense. Now, the real deal breaker here is the notion that the non-Jew could attain a share in the world to come by only keeping the 7 laws, even though he knows that the Torah is true and the commandments are true. However, friends, have you ever asked your rabbi, where does it state this in the Torah, that a non-Jew would be given a place in the world to come by only keeping the 7 laws? Well, he will say that it's not explicitly in the Torah, but we learn this from Hilchot Melachim in the Rambam, which is a portion I'm very familiar with. But if you then ask him, is this notion d'oraita or d'Rabbanan? In other words, is it a concept from the Torah or is it from the rabbis? And what's the answer? He'll tell you. It's a rabbinic concept. As a matter of fact, friends, you must know that the concept that non-Jews who keep the laws of Noah have a share in the world to come is actually a dispute among the rabbis. Actually, the rabbis in the Gemara were split on the issue. In other words, around half said that they do have a share, and the other half said that they don't have a share. Unlike something that could be rabbinic but directly, unilaterally derived from the Torah. Not to mention that the Rambam mentions in Hilchot Tshuva that someone who deliberately keeps others from keeping mitzvot, as in this case, turning someone away from the 613 mitzvahs they have already consciously accepted, to then keep only 7 laws, would lose his share in the world to come. Why? Well, because it's obvious, friends. The more mitzvot, the greater the tikkun. Not to mention that the Rambam himself speaks about if someone who decides to be circumcised for conversion and then does not go along with it, he is considered like a heretic among the nations. And this is, my friends, the exact thing that is happening today. And worse, it's happening through rabbinic persuasion. So, friends, in other words, if I was a non-Jew, it would seem a bit haphazard to base my eternity on a rabbinic argument that, like I just said, many, or actually about around half, were opposed to. And not to mention that the portion in Hilchot Melachim is not even considered halacha, but really only has an agadic status. Why? Because it's not commanding us anything to do. Even the Rambam explicitly writes in the Surah Biyah that when someone who is interested in Judaism and knows Torah to be true and accepts Torah, we tell the person that the world to come is set aside only for the righteous, and these are the Jews. In other words, we don't mention the Noahide laws as an option. In other words, you even see that the Rambam here makes a distinction between a rabbinic argument that acts as a halachic placeholder and something that you say to someone looking for a secure place for their soul. Something that could only be trusted if it's from the Torah. And again, that's the notion that the righteous within Israel have a secured share in the world to come, unlike the Noahides. Further, the Rambam goes on to state that we do not elaborate on all the particulars lest we take him from the good path he has chosen, i.e. converting, to the bad path. And friends, I know this is something you've never heard these pro-Noahide rabbis say, which is that the Rambam here says that it's better for a non-Jew to become a Jew than to remain a non-Jew. So here, the Rambam is almost setting the precedence for the statement he then makes that the world to come is set apart only for the righteous, which are the Jews, which is again a Torah concept versus what he said in Hilchot Melachim, which is only a rabbinic concept built off a rabbinic argument that everyone who is familiar with Masechet Horayot or even Hilchot Shagagot will tell you has the possibility of being wrong. In other words, friends, just like in Dinei Nefashot, in this case, he would be in some sort of Dinei Neshamot, in judgments of your soul. One should only use the Torah as their foundation and not rely solely on a rabbinic argument. And this, friends, is not something that's new, but it's a notion that the majority of the rabbis are familiar with, which makes it even more disheartening. I mean, assuming that your rabbi really didn't know and still tried to keep you away from Judaism. The only secure choice. What cruelty, my friends. And this, friends, is one of the main reasons conversions have been outlawed by the rabbis in about 99% of the world today, because these rabbis feel that they know better and proceed to make up the world's mind up for them instead of giving them the opportunity to convert and have a secured share in the world to come. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have emunat chachamim, faith in our rabbis. However, in this case, a Noahide would really have to have complete faith in the rabbis, a faith that a Jew would not be required to have. Because even the Rambam writes in Hilchot Mamrim about a similar situation. He writes that the following rules apply when there are two sages or two courts that have a different opinion in an age when there was no Supreme Sanhedrin, or during the time when the Sanhedrin was still undecided concerning the matter. Whether in one age or two different ages, one rules that an article is pure and one rules that it is impure. One forbids an article's use and one permits it. If one does not know in which direction the law tends, should the matter involve a question of scriptural law, follow the more severe opinion. If it involves a question of rabbinic law, follow the more lenient opinion. Are you beginning to understand, my friends? Which is why I never considered the Lubavitch Rebbe so great because of his worldwide Noahide campaign. Why? Because if anyone, he knew everything I just mentioned in this video and never once said the words that it would be better and more secure for a Gentile to become a Jew than remain a non-Jew. And this, friends, brings us to the halachic notion that I don't think I've ever covered online before. And that's that we're not obligated to believe all the words of the sages, but rather we're only obligated to heed their words and their instructions. And friends, I really believe that if the rabbis 2,000 years ago would see this video, they wouldn't be able to imagine that a time would have arisen when the Jews would actually be discouraging people from joining them and entering under the Shekhinah. I know they would have thought that only an idiot would encourage anything less than Torah as an absolute standard. And friends, all this really arose because of the spread of mysticism and irrational Judaism as a whole. That has completely nullified the purpose and message of Torah to the world. And friends, really the best analogy I could bring to illustrate my argument is that imagine you're about to jump out of an airplane and you have two parachutes in front of you. Now, everyone in the room agrees that the one on the right is functional, and only about 50% of the room agrees that the one on the left is functional. Which one would you choose, friends? Friends, choose Torah, choose life. For more information on converting to Judaism, please visit doordea.com. And for more information on everything Jewish, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.